Measure passes. File item 120, that's AB 232. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 232 by Assemblymember Travis Allen, enacted under Parks and Monuments.
Mr. Allen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. AB 232 makes a slight adjustment to lengthen the review period of a lease agreement for our state parks. This will ensure that we provide the public with a sufficient open review time frame while not inhibiting the state's ability to lease our parks for mutually beneficial operations. This bill has no opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 77, noes 0. Measure passes. File item 121. That's AB 279. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 279 by Assemblymember Dodd, enacted relating to taxation.
Mr. Dodd, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 279 is a modest and logical extension of an information sharing program which has been immense use to cities and which the legislature has reauthorized on 3 different occasions. The bill simply extends the same voluntary program to counties. The bill generates significant revenue by expediting counties' collections of back taxes. The FTB estimates that the passage of AB 279 would result in over $1.3 million in revenue over the next 3 years.
Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 62, noes 9. Measure passes. File items 122 through 125 pass and retain. Moving to file item 126, that's AB 605. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 605 by Assemblymember Gatto, enacted relating to vehicles.
Mr. Gatto, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 605 is a consumer protection and fee reduction measure. It clarifies that the charge paid by consumers for electronically filing title and registration documents with the DMV should not be cluttered up with unrelated fees. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gatto. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 75, no 0. Measure passes. Members moving temporarily back to motions and resolutions. Mr. Holden, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the request of Ms. Waldron, please remove the following bills from consent. File item 173, Assembly Bill 316, Manshine. File item 174, AB 317, Manshine. File item 183, AB 704, Cooley. File item 189, AB 835, Gibson.
Clerk will note.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Members back on the file. That's file item 128, AB 746 for the purpose of amendment. Clerk will read with amendments.
Assembly Bill 746 with amendments by Assemblymember Ting.
Mr. Ting, you may open on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendments to AB 746 are technical in nature. They merely allow the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority to have general obligation bond authority to fund bay restoration projects. The amendments are technical in nature and address the local government committee's concerns. I ask for aye vote.
Ms. Waldron, you're recognized.
Without objection.
Thank you, Ms. Waldron. Without objection, we may take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Bill is out to print and back on file. File item 129, pass and retain. File item 130, that's AB 1024. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1024 by Assemblymember Beth Gaines, enacted into vehicles.
Ms. Gaines, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 1024 modernizes current law by amending the requirements to become an operator of an online driver's education program. AB 1024 eliminates a 2,000-hour behind-the-wheel teaching experience requirement. This applies only to driver's education programs that are solely operated online and offer no behind-the-wheel instruction. However, AB 1024 still requires operators to take a class and pass a test on safe driving, traffic laws, and vehicle code requirements. There's no opposition to the bill, and I would respectfully request an aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Gaines. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tie the vote. Ayes 75, no 0. Measure passes. File item 131, that's AB 1073. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1073 by Assemblymember Ting and actually into pharmacy.
Mr. Ting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 1073 is a simple bill. It merely requires the Board of Pharmacy to translate medicine for various pharmacies to use across the state. With over 6.5 million Californians who speak a language other than English at home, this is an opportunity for them to get medical information that really is important to their health in their language that serves them. I respectfully ask for aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Ting. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 74, no 0. Measure passes. File item 132, AB 1228. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1228 by Assemblymember Gibson and others and actually into public post-secondary education.
Mr. Gibson, you may open.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speakers and members. I rise to present AB 1228, which seeks to create parity between foster youth and homeless youth in receiving priority for housing in higher education. Members, current law requires CSU campuses to provide priority current to foster youth on campus. 40% of foster youth becomes homeless, and reports estimates that over more than 10,000 homeless college students in California, yet we actually figure that their numbers are greater because students don't identify because of the stigma of being homeless and being in the foster system. Given the intersection between these two populations, if we can agree that that those individuals who this will affect, and we're asking those individuals to please support this particular bill. With this in mind, AB 1228 seeks to expand current law to include current and former youth, homeless youth, to ensure that they receive housing during the academic school year and also during the breaks. This bill will bring a minor cost to the state. We must do everything that we can to support those in foster care as well as homeless youth. I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Mr. Alejo, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question for the author.
Without objection.
Since this is my colleague's first bill, I just wanted to ask, well, I'm pretty impressed that his first bill is regarding our foster and homeless youth in our universities, and this is certainly a bill that he will not profit from. But I was wondering if he might walk us through this bill once again.
Mr. Gibson, you may address that now or in your close.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'll address it in my close.
On my own time, Mr. Speaker. Everyone, this is a great bill. It's so good that even Russell Simmons can't support this bill.
Dr. Weber, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker, and my great colleague from the area of Compton and Carson, you have a great interest in the homeless. Are the people of Carson aware that the Chargers are not homeless, and therefore you don't need to snatch them away?
Without objection. The floor is yours, Mr. Gibson.
Thank you very much. Let me just simply say that this is a growing crisis in our community. This is an issue that faces my community, where you have over more than 10,000 young people who go through many obstacles to graduate from high school and be accepted into a university and be accepted to housing. And then at the break, those individuals have to deal with trying to find somewhere to live. They're homeless. They're staying in their cars. They're living on the floors. If there's a vacant house, those individuals are taking that vacant house and making it their home. I believe it's our duties and responsibility to protect our young people, those individuals who life sometimes throw many curveballs in their way. Those individuals who are striving to become and be part of the American dream. I believe that this bill will seek to try to protect those individuals because during the time that the dorms are closed during recess, they're vacant. This bill will seek to allow those individuals to remain at what we call their home. And I'm asking this body to support this particular bill. I ask for an aye vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Seeing no further discussion or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 72, noes 2. Measure passes. File item 133, that's AB 1358. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1358 by Assembly Member DeBobney, an act relating to school facilities.
Mr. DeBobney, you may open.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Members, AB 1358 is a straightforward bill to authorize and extend design-build authority for school districts on projects over $1 million until the year 2025. This delivery method leads to accelerated project completion, cost containment, reduction of construction complexity, and reduced risk of cost overruns for school districts. It is important to note that this bill does not require school districts to utilize design-build, nor does it change traditional design-build processes. This bill simply expands the option for school districts to use design-build and changes requirements for contractors to pre-qualify for design-build contracts. Simply put, this bill adds school districts and schools to SB 785, which passed this House last year in an overwhelming bipartisan vote and was signed by the governor. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. DeBobney. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 57, noes 13. Measure passes. Members, we are going to take up file item 134. That's AB 1509. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1509 by Assembly Member Roger Hernandez, an act relating to employment.
Mr. Hernandez, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 1509 will strengthen California's critical employment retaliations provisions. Recent cases and examples highlight several major gaps in existing California statute that prohibit retaliation against employees from engaging in protected activity. AB 1509 will close those gaps in order to protect California workers. Recent amendments reflect language which has been agreed to between the California Labor Federation and the California Chamber of Commerce. There is no opposition to this bill, and that's why I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 51, noes 24. Measure passes. File item 135. Pass and retain. File item 136. That's AB 915. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 915 by Assembly Member Holden, an act relating to public education employees.
Mr. Holden, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to present Assembly Bill 915. Assembly Bill 915 would remove archaic and stringent travel restrictions placed on classified and certified school employees. Existing law prohibits classified and certified employees who are on leave and receiving workers' compensation from traveling outside the state unless the governing board approves the travel. This bill has received overwhelming bipartisan support in Policy Committee. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 75, noes 0. Measure passes. File items 137 through 141 pass and retain. Moving to file item 142, that's AB 830. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 830 by Assembly Member Eggman, an act relating to civil actions.
Ms. Eggman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I'm pleased today to present AB 830, the bill that makes clear that all Californians, including transgender women and men, are afforded the same protections against violence or threats of violence based on gender. We've all heard sobering statistics of women being victims of stalking threats or violence. However, these problems are particularly pronounced when we're talking about the transgender community, and they are currently not afforded the same protections under law as others. This bill makes it so that people are able to have protections under the law, as well they should, if they are victims of violence and or assault. There's no opposition. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Eggman. Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 69, no 0. Measure passes. File item 143, that's AB 504. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 504 by Assemblymember Gonzalez, enacting into land use.
Ms. Gonzalez, you may open.
AB 504 clarifies the responsibility of local governments in the exercise of land use authority. Specifically, this bill will clarify that a local government may delegate performance of administrative or ministerial planning functions, but must retain all non-administrative or non-ministerial planning functions. It will also require any planning actions taken on behalf of local government to be appealable to the legislative body of that government. In other words, this bill is about transparency and representation in government. Every neighborhood, even working class ones like mine, deserve to have a say in the development and future of their neighborhoods, and this bill is a way to ensure that. Not only is it good public policy, but according to the Legislative Council, it is also what is required to safeguard the delegation of land use powers according to the California Constitution. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 48, noes 24. Measure passes. File items 144 and 145 pass and retain. Moving to file item 146. That's AB 1350. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1350 by Assemblymember Salas, enacting into hospital authorities.
Mr. Salas, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I present before you AB 2546. This is a follow-up measure to a law that was signed into law last year. It provides technical amendments. It helps for the transition to a hospital authority. With that, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Salas. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 76, no 0. Measure passes. File item 147, pass and retain. File item 148, AB 650. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 650 by Assemblymember Perea, enacting into horse racing.
Mr. Perea, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 650 would add the Bluegrass Stakes to the list of imported races that are exempt from the 50 per day limitation. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 78, no 0. Measure passes. File item 149, that's AB 903. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 903 by Assemblymember Cristina Garcia, enacting into gaming.
Ms. Garcia, you may open.
Mr. Chair, members, AB 903 permits a person who is between 18 and 21 years of age to obtain a work permit in order to be employed in a gambling establishment as long as they do not work as dealers, floor personnel, or any other employment and classification that involves working on the floor. While the economy has improved, California's current unemployment rates is 6.7%. Over 1.2 million Californians remain unemployed, with some cities having double-digit unemployment numbers. For instance, the city of Commerce currently has a 10.6% unemployment rate. There are many Californians in the ages of 18 to 21 years that are currently looking for work opportunities. Some of these Californians include veterans, single parents, and some college students that need work while they complete their education. The bill creates an opportunity employment. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tie the vote. Ayes 76. No, 0. Measure passes. File item 150. That's AB 1295. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1295 by Assemblymember Gray, an act relating to horse racing.
Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, AB 1295 will provide races in Southern California with more flexibility to increase both on-track and off-track attendance when no live racing is occurring in Northern California. This bill has no opposition. I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 74, no 0. Measure passes. File item 151. That's AB 465. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 465 by Assemblymember Roger Hernandez, an act relating to employment.
Mr. Hernandez, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, this bill will ensure that waivers of important employment rights and procedures arising under California law are made voluntary and with the consent of the employee. Many of us are aware of the vast proliferation of waivers and arbitration clauses contained in consumer contracts. This problem is even more egregious in the employment context through the use of mandatory or forced contracts. This problem is even more and more employers often require these clauses to be signed as a condition of employment. And often they are buried in the fine print of the massive amounts of documents employees are forced to sign in order to obtain a job. A recent Wall Street Journal article reported that in 2014, 43% of employers required workers to sign these agreements. There is nothing voluntary about these agreements when they are forced upon the workers on a take-it-or-leave-it basis. Let's not fool ourselves. This is not equal bargaining power between an employer and a worker who is desperate for a job to support themselves and their families. Especially in today's still struggling economy, workers are desperate for a job, any job, and will almost always sign any document that is put in front of them as a condition of obtaining that job. And the system is entirely unfair because the employer generally selects the arbiter who has a financial incentive to rule in the employer's favor so they get future work. This bill attempts to bring some balance to the equation by simply ensuring that these agreements are truly voluntary. The bill does the following. It ensures that these agreements will not be required as a condition of employment. It prohibits an employer from discriminating or retaliating against an employee who refuses to signing such waiving of rights. It ensures that such agreements are knowing and voluntary and in writing. That is in accordance with federal law. This bill is patterned after legislation authored last year by Assemblymember Shirley Weber, who was signed into law by Governor Brown. That bill imposed similar requirements relating to waivers of civil rights claims. No worker should be forced to choose between a job and giving up core labor rights and procedures. All of this important bills we work so hard to pass on this floor are meaningless if one day workers are forced to sign away enforcements of these rights. That's exactly what is happening, and that's why it's essential that we move this bill forward to address this concern. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Mr. Rendon, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of this bill and thank the author for bringing it forward. A system that forces workers to sign an arbitration agreement or lose their job is inherently unfair. The vast majority of these clauses allow the employer to select the arbitrator. That creates a repeat player problem where the arbitrator has an incentive to rule in favor of the employer. The Chamber cites studies that purportedly support the claim that consumers do the same or better in arbitration compared with litigation. That data is not employment specific and includes all types of consumer arbitration, so it is not accurate to rely on such data. In contrast, a recent law review article summarized studies of employment arbitration and showed that workers do worse in arbitration, and many even drop their claims altogether. This is not a fair system, especially when imposed upon workers as a condition of employment. I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Wagner, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've got to rise in opposition to the bill. The bottom line is these contracts are not arbitrarily and unfairly imposed upon employees. Contracts that are arbitrarily and unfairly imposed on employees, contracts of adhesion, courts will not enforce. However, with respect to these exact type of contracts, both the United States Supreme Court and our California Supreme Court have said that these contracts are fair, they are appropriate, they are great at reducing the burdens in our court system, but they are not unfair to the employee. In fact, what we're hearing from the employer community is this bill will end up being a job killer. So rather than empowering our employees and allowing them to get out of unfair contracts, which they're not already in, rather than doing that, we're going to see fewer jobs. We're going to see fewer people actually having to sign employment agreements because they won't be available to them. All for what? We haven't heard that there's a problem. Indeed, when the courts are asked time and time and time again to address these contracts, the courts time and time and time again say they're fair to both sides, they're fine for the employees, they're not imposed on a take-it-or-leave-it basis. The terms are often very much negotiable throughout the entire range of the employment contract, not just this one little provision. Why single it out? Take a look at who supports the bill, and you'll probably have an answer to that. But take a look at what the courts that have been grappling with these agreements for 40 years have done, and they're going to tell you they're not a problem. For that reason, once again, we are fixing a system that is not broken in order to really put our thumb on the scale, tip the balance, frankly, be unfair. I urge you to vote against this job killer because the problem that we're told exists doesn't exist, and that's not me telling you that. That's our Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court, all the underlying courts. This is an easy no. I urge a no.
Thank you, Mr. Whiter. Mr. Stone, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill, and it's very important distinction, I think, to make that when we're acting in our best, we're leveling the playing field, and that's exactly what this bill does, is it levels the playing field in that conversation between employers and employees in their employment contract. And it is a broader provision that is aimed at the waivers, arbitration provisions, and others that tend to be offered as take it or leave it in employment contracts. This bill puts into effect what courts have long used in contract law, this notion of unconscionability, and allows them to be able to look and use that standard here. There's some opposition that this bill would be preempted by federal law, and I rise to tell you that that is not true. If it was specifically dealing with the arbitration provision, you might have an argument there, but because of that this is looking at the contract as a whole and obligations between the employer and the employee, the federal preemption argument is just not there, and I respectfully request and I vote on this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Dr. Weber, you're recognized.
Yes, Mr. Speaker and members, I too rise in support of AB 465 and want to encourage you to look carefully at the bill because this is not an anti-arbitration bill. This is a bill about information, making sure that those who engage in any kind of relationship have been informed as to actually what is in the agreement. We heard the same arguments last year when I proposed the arbitration bill concerning civil rights. Everyone thought that it would throw arbitration out the window, that somebody would come down, that it would be declared illegal. And we spent a lot of time working with the legal staff here at the Capitol and the governor's office, looking at it, vetting it, and evaluating it, even in light of some of the federal regulations regarding arbitration and the restrictions placed there as well, to make sure that obviously we were within the law. But what's important is that anyone who believes that there is some fairness in terms of an employer and employee relationship, it's always tilted in favor of the employer who has the ability to offer the job. I mean, so those are not equal relationships. What we're saying is that there should at least be some open and transparent discussion about what a person has to sign before they sign it, that they know what they're signing, and basically giving away your right to eventually go to court should not be the condition of getting a job. And that's very, very important. So those two relationships are not equal, the employer-employee relationship are not equal. This is a good step in order to make sure that those who are seeking jobs are not under such duress and stress that they have to sign away their rights. And given the economy and given what we're talking about, generally we're talking about those who are basically getting jobs at the poorest level, who are not having the kind of opportunity or the options so often, and they're eager to get this job without realizing that they may be giving up their rights later on as an employee. So I strongly ask you to support this bill. You did support my bill last year. It went through both houses, signed by the governor, and is now law in the state of California. And this bill is a good bill to protect our workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. Mr. Harper, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill in large part because voluntary arbitration agreements are a way to be able to divert dispute resolution away from our already overburdened court system. This bill allocates no additional resources to alleviate issues with our overburdened court system, and so really what this would do is would clog our courts with indeed more disputes, which we should indeed avoid. I urge a no vote.
Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, Mr. Hernandez, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my close, I just want to address some of the comments that were made. The gentleman from Irvine, the representative for Irvine, commented that the courts already have said that arbitration that is voluntary, binding arbitration that is voluntary is okay by the courts, and that's true. When it's voluntary, when it's knowing, my bill recognizes that. But any employee that's asked to sign these agreements for binding arbitration or not get the job, there's nothing voluntary about that. To waive their rights to access the courts or the administrative process, to waive those rights, there's nothing voluntary about that. So we can talk about voluntary and that being the case in the law and the courts. That is true. But there's nothing voluntary when they're waived as a condition for employment. The gentleman from Irvine also said that we've heard from the employer that this would be a job killer. That's one side. Clearly, the employer has made their arguments, and the employer likes it the way it is, having leverage over the workers, where the workers have waived rights. This bill says if in fact it is true that the signing up for binding arbitration is voluntary, then don't make it a condition for employment if it's in fact voluntary. Many of us here today sign up for direct deposit. It's voluntary. It's knowing. No one here would tell us if you don't sign up for direct deposit, you don't get to start work here in the assembly, whether you're staff or a member. But imagine if we were told you didn't sign up for direct deposit, so you don't get to work here. So what is voluntary about that? So my bill says that it cannot be made as a condition for employment to sign off these rights. I respectfully ask your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Seeing no further discussion on this item, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote.